Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode, episode number 82 today for the Italian Grand Prix in Season 5. If you guys did miss the previous episode uploaded a few days ago at the Belgium Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. That was a fantastic episode for us, of course, in the fight back against George Russell after the calamity of the double DNF we face at the Austrian and British Grand Prix. It was a pretty mad race as well. We had a kind of a pit lane entry crash, which was a bit of a ghosting situation, unfortunately, for us, but then a massive incident at the same time that brought out the safety car. We had some very realistic AI mistakes with Verstappen whilst we were battling him, having a spin on the curb all on his own. Very lifelike. So yeah, some peculiar stuff, that's been happening this season so far in terms of things I've never seen from the AI or game mechanics themselves. But of course, you now know, and hopefully you know by now if you went back to watch the video, spoiler alert, we went on to win the Belgium Grand Prix. So our second race win of the season, and one that was really needed and was so well timed because George Russell, of course, for whatever reason, I think mechanical issue that we know that AI can temporarily have, he moved down out the points. He finished in P11. So effectively, we kind of erased what happened, the damage that was dealt to us at the British Grand Prix. We undid it. Of course, the Austrian Grand Prix still happened. He still got the win there. We still had the DNF. So unless we go on to win the Italian Grand Prix, we've still got a bit of work to do. 16 points, though, is a lot better than 42 or 41 or whatever it was. That seemed pretty daunting. 16 with how long we've got left, half of the season just about. That is somewhat doable and manageable. And of course, we've got everyone else behind us in the championship who will also be there, trying to be a spanner in the works. And speaking about a spanner into the works, something that's come out completely out of left field is the driver announcement, retirement announcement, that Daniel Ricciardo, who is currently at Ferrari, partnering Carlos Sainz, he will be retiring from Formula 1. So into Season 6, there will be no more Ricciardo. That leaves a space open at Ferrari. So quite a big seat. So that may hopefully have a bit of a domino effect. Still to this day, I don't know how Hamilton's AI is frauding his way still in the game, still in this career mode series, just like in F1 2020, despite him having such a low focus, and he's pretty much not even the same Lewis Hamilton we know in real life. Very much the opposite of the Hamilton we know in real life. He's still somehow not retiring himself, because Ricciardo himself has had a similar fate. He's on like 31 focus, I think. Very low focus. And so I think that's the reason why he's being pushed into retirement by the game mechanics. But I don't know what on earth is keeping Hamilton in this seat. But there we go. So at the Italian Grand Prix, in front of the Tifosi, that is when Ricciardo has decided to announce, probably very heartfelt, retirement from the Scuderia and the entire sport indeed. And speaking of the Italian Grand Prix, we move into the race weekend Q1 settings, trying to do the best job we can. And like I said, I think we should be going well around here. If we have around Belgium, I think we should here. We were in for a chance to win Austria, Britain, and Belgium. We only won one of those. We DNF'd the other two. Clearly, our car is working well, and we, I think, are driving pretty well. I think the two DNFs were very unfortunate. This could have been a very different story of this career mode season. This could have been me dominating this season if it wasn't for those two DNFs. So I think we should be in a good chance to do well around here. The question mark is, will Leclerc do well to help us in the fight versus McLaren, Russell, and Norris? Because mine is maybe last episode where, both McLarens had a bit of a blip. We had, Norris on a 2-stop. Russell had an issue. Apart from that, they've been really solid, really consistent. So we can't, bank on them having poor races like Belgium over and over again, because they're clearly quick. Lando's right up there in P2 at the moment. Russell just about makes it through, though, in P9, so a bit of a discrepancy there. And once again, Leclerc is knocked out in Q2. We re-signed him recently. He was 91 focus. So this is kind of showing that the game, the focus stat, the number might be there, but it doesn't give you the full picture. I think clearly there's still an underlying bit in the coding, to do with just momentum of how they do race to race, because clearly his focus is still very high, but race to race, he's not having the results, and they're not stringing together, and they're not kind of, tapping into that focus, essentially. It's the same, thing with, Gasly. Recently, he's been doing better, getting podiums, of course, thanks to the simulation after our DNFs. But, at the start of the season, he wasn't getting the results together, and he was kind of domino affecting, going backwards. But he's kind of reset in a way, but that hasn't happened with Bottas, who continues to struggle versus Guan Yu Zhou, his much more junior teammate. Bottas was looking so quick at the end of last season. So very peculiar stuff there. But anyway, as I've been waffling on about that, we're into Q3 and we're going out for our second run. Our first run really wasn't that great. You saw a bit of sliding in the first sector in the chicanes. So we need to try and do better, especially this chicane here. Didn't make the most of that right-hander we have on here, and we're nearly gaining about 4/10. Now, I'm the only man on a second run. Everyone else only went for one run in Q3 here. I don't know, struggles in Q2. So everyone only had one set to go. We have a second chance across the line, nearly 7/10 gained. It's not enough to continue our string of front rows. That goes to Guan Yu Zhou on pole position. As I said, his teammate was knocked out, so he's the only Williams here, and he's on pole position. Sainz in second place, again showing the Ferrari, raw pace is there, has the pace, but they've been the typical Ferrari, so unlucky, bad management, but also just horrendous luck for Sainz as of late with damage here and there and just poor strategies pushing him down the order. So whether he, gets anywhere near the podium come race day, we'll have to see. Obviously, it would be amazing for him in front of the Ferrari home fans. And Ricciardo, in the race where he announced his retirement, made it through into Q3. I didn't even notice that for the first time in a long while. Fair play, but our lap time, it was a very good improvement on that second run to get us up into the second row, and alongside the familiar Max Verstappen. We seem to be joined to the hip as of late in qualifying, and the McLarens again consistently just there and annoyingly there with Russell on the third row, so he'll be able to do some damage limitation, of course. And with the race pace McLaren have shown, may not even be that. There's no guarantee that he won't go and try and overtake us in the race. McLaren have looked very good in a straight line, and apart from Belgium, they've been very fast in the races. So let's see how this goes, but it's another chance to try and take points away from Russell. And I think more so than anything, this is going to be a crazy race. I think it always is around Monza with the game, with the slipstreaming. Let's go to the grid.
It's time for the Italian Grand Prix once again, here at the beloved and iconic Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. With the lowest downforce and drag of any circuit in the season, expect to see drivers making the most of the slipstream effect here today. With top speeds reaching 215 miles per hour, only a few places can challenge Monza's crown as the fastest circuit in F1. Hard braking zones going into the 3 chicanes make up the majority of the 11 corners on this 3.6-mile circuit. And just in case the slipstream wasn't enough, 2 DRS zones will help encourage some closer action. Anthony Davidson is here once again for today's Grand Prix. Let's have a chat about Williams. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Guan Yu Zhou lines up on pole position. A very happy Carlos Sainz will start second. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have the owner driver, Norris, George Russell and Tsunoda, Gasly, Ricciardo, Giovinazzi and Mick Schumacher, Bottas, Leclerc, Esteban Ocon and Verstappen, Hamilton, Stroll, Jack Aitken and Nikita Mazepin, Eilert, Latifi, Lundgaard and Nobuharu Matsushita. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
So all stays put for most of us in the top 10, apart from Verstappen. He's not on the same row as us anymore. He's been demoted down with a grid penalty, so he's actually very close to Lewis Hamilton then on the bottom there. So it's going to be interesting to actually see now the difference between Verstappen and Hamilton's AI here. You're going to see the difference between a kind of, a high 80 to 90 rated AI to a literal 23 rated, I think, focus AI of Hamilton these days. Of course, Hamilton's still highly rated in terms of his stats, but his focus is so low. You're going to see that difference, I think, from Verstappen to him. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe both can make their way through. It's going to be easier to maybe overtake in a straight line, where I think Mercedes still have some good speed in a straight line, clearly, but their car on the corner is not there. But for us, it's going to be a fight where we're going to hopefully look forwards towards Guan Yu Zhou and Carlos Sainz. Good opportunities there, but now it means the McLarens are right there behind me. George Russell lines up right behind me, and Lando now is alongside me on the same row. So we've got to watch out for that and be wary of those two working together to maybe try and pin me down and push me down the order. So, you know, it's going to be very interesting in terms of the tyre wear as well. That's going to be a factor. No rain, but we're going to have to watch it on tyre wear. Like Belgium, maybe try and eke out the soft compound to ensure we don't have any issues later on in the race, and kind of avoiding the hard compound, which I think a few AI may go to choose. But here we go then, going to 5 red lights to the Italian Grand Prix, coming off a win. Can we try and get close to one again as we go to lights out, and away we go? And it's a really slow, mediocre start from us. It's a pretty slow one from Carlos Sainz and an electric one from Lando Norris alongside him. We're going to try and dive around the outside, 3 wide into turn 1. We take avoiding action though, because I could see on the right hand side that Sainz and Norris was so hell-bent on trying to outbrake each other that they were going to squeeze me out. We're going to have to hit that sausage curb, and Sainz is slow. Sainz is slow. Does he have an issue? Has he got damage off Norris once again? He is quick in qualifying, but he's too clumsy in the race, and Sainz may have damage. I think he does, to be honest, with how slow he's going. Either, you know, front wing, or it's just a mechanical issue because he's so slow in a straight line there. But Guan Yu Zhou leads the way then off pole position. Norris in second there. Thankfully, it's not Russell's McLaren who's up to P2. Russell's actually down to P6. He's been overtaken by Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda belting through. The AlphaTauris have definitely picked up pace. They look a lot better in the races, but Tsunoda is still the one to be leading the charge versus Gasly this season. Then Schumacher, Giovinazzi. The Red Bulls were slow in qualifying, but they're looking punchy in the race. Schumacher leading Giovinazzi as he just makes a move on the Ferrari of Ricciardo and Bottas. There, Bottas round the outside and trying to make amends for his qualifying and try his best to maybe bridge the gap to his teammate Guan Yu Zhou. Meanwhile, Verstappen, with that engine penalty, he's been demoted outside of the top 10, trying to recover, and already you're seeing that difference of Verstappen versus Hamilton's AI. Verstappen up to P10, Hamilton down in P13 still, and meanwhile up the order we can see Schumacher gaining on Gasly, Bottas gaining on Giovinazzi. So many moves being made by these AI, but at the moment all stationary now into that next chicane. But every single lap there may be moves to be made by everyone really. Verstappen maybe looking to make a move on Ricciardo, not quite there, but look how close they are. It really looks like F1 esports here at Monza with all these maxed out cars and how close everyone is. Russell is trying, well, that's actually losing a position to Gasly because he was ahead of Gasly, so he's now going to toe-to-toe, so they're racing each other, trying to jockey for that position. Tsunoda involved as well. Oh, sorry, that was Tsunoda. That was Tsunoda. So Russell actually trying to make some moves. So unlike Belgium, he's actually looking a bit quick there. Apologies there. Thought that was Gasly, but no, it's Tsunoda. So Tsunoda falling away a little bit, and Russell waking up in this race and showing that the McLaren does have that race pace they've had all season long. You know, Norris right up there in P2 as we're trying to chase after him. But at the moment, the momentum seems to be with the other Brit in the McLaren team. But Russell, obviously leading the championship, is not just going to throw that massive lead away. He's going to fight for it, and so he's going to try and get Tsunoda if he can. As we now watch, well, that was Bottas. Sorry, Bottas made a double overtake on Schumacher and Gasly. Also, apologies, didn't even really mention that, but that was a biblical overtake by Bottas, really was, round the outside at the Ascari chicane, as we now look to make a move on Norris. Squeeze him a bit to the left, take the racing line, taking no prisoners, don't want any funny business with the man we fought so hard for the World Championship a couple of seasons ago, as we're up into P2 now, and we now try and use that clean air to chase after Guan Yu Zhou. Feeling good. I feel like if we just get our head down and we can slowly chip away, I think genuinely we could be fighting for the win here again at the Italian Grand Prix. Meanwhile, Giovinazzi on the outside of the AlphaTauri of Tsunoda. So the AlphaTauri started so well, but now their race pace is falling away. Wonder if it's the tyre wear, perhaps, I don't know. But Bottas well, Bottas has overtaken Russell. So we've missed that overtake, but Bottas is up into P4. So the flying Finn really has arrived. But look at Verstappen now with the double overtake. The big dive bomb round the outside of Ricciardo. And also the AlphaTauri of Gasly. What a move by Max Verstappen. An insane dive bomb. He's still got to finish the job, though, with Daniel Ricciardo giving him a good fight. In the race weekend, he announced his retirement, giving a bit of a fight in his belly for the Tifosi fans out here on today. But Verstappen, attempted a very, very bold overtake, but now he's slowing. Lap 5, what's going on here? But Hamilton's right up behind him. Has he got an issue now? He's been, he's way behind Ricciardo now compared to where he was. And he looks so slow. Does he have damage? Did he pick up any in that 3-wide move? Maybe floor damage, which is not visually, obviously, represented in the game properly on the sides there. Because Hamilton is now going through. This is a very peculiar sight. Hamilton overtaking Verstappen in this career mode as teammates. Very, very peculiar. And meanwhile, we see Tsunoda losing a position to Ricciardo. So the Ferrari, well, what could have been for Carlos Sainz, because he's not even the top 20. He's in stone dead last with that early pit stop. But if Ricciardo, who's retiring because he's so poor lately in the career mode with 23 focus, or like lower than that, or around then, if he's up in the top 10, I think Sainz could have been battling right here for the race win with Guan Yu Zhou. So very unfortunate for the Spaniard and the Scuderia. So it's going to be down to us then to try and topple Guan Yu Zhou's supremacy here out Monza. So far he's been in control of this race, but here we go on the outside. He's still there though. We tried to pinch him, but he's just forced our hand to give him room. And on the exit of that second turn, just a bit of wheel spin you can see there as we had to kind of go opposite lock a tiny bit just to control it, and that gives Guan Yu Zhou the upper hand. Do we go left? Do we go right? We're going to go to the left. It's so close on the left hand side there. The Chinese driver giving us a good old squeeze, and it's a bit awkward into the next chicane because I wasn't sure if he was going to try and commit round the outside. He did not, thankfully, and so we're up into P1 of the Italian Grand Prix, but we've got a long way to go, and that Williams is so good in a straight line. Any car is going to be, though, around Monza with DRS. Once you have DRS, it's a slam dunk here, but we're going to try and re-overtake him. Big dive around the outside, but Guan Yu Zhou good on the defense. We're going to shimmy and shake and try and do a bit of a switchback. Doesn't quite work there, but it's a classic fight at Monza. We're almost like dancing around each chicane, going kind of intertwining racing lines, trying to get the upper hand for acceleration. Can we go on the outside? Big lunge on the right-hand side there. Guan Yu Zhou slow. He goes over the curb, and you can see his front wing vaulted a bit as he hopped the curb and lost some pace, and we're back up into P1 again. But he's going to have DRS on the next lap. We know that. So it's all about trying to break the toe at some point. We need to try and get away from him, but that's difficult because the Williams is so good in the hands of Guan Yu Zhou this season. He's been mighty. There's a reason why he's beating Bottas thoroughly here so far in the standings. He's been there. He's kind of matured as an AI driver and has actually put up more of a fight so far this season than we ever saw in the last season when he was obviously in the same sort of, good Williams alongside Bottas, but he just never was here. And now, look at who's arrived. Lando Norris has arrived. We've been fighting so much that me and Guan Yu Zhou as a pairing lost our 4-second lead, and so it's become a 4-way fight because Bottas has arrived. He may be looking worse than Zhou overall this season, but today he's been sensational. But Guan Yu Zhou will overtake us. We let him through on purpose, though. You may have noticed I lifted off as we're now trying to get the DRS on him, but facing a bit of oversteer there, nearly spinning it in Parabolica. Lando Norris comes in, so it is time for the pit stops nearly, and Norris comes in for maybe an undercut, but we've got DRS to retake the lead. This is what I wanted. I wanted DRS on Zhou to get to turn 1 first and maintain first place on purpose, letting him through before Parabolica to re-overtake him. But the two Williams now are very close together. We're going to say box in this lap and then just try and measure when we actually come in, because I could come in this lap to react to Norris, but it's maybe 1 lap early than I wanted to. I wanted to go to lap 12 to try and make sure the mediums have the pace. We've got Zhou now on the outside into Parabolica again. We do some defensive work, squeeze him out. Bottas is there now, nipping at his heels. What? Who's going to do what? We're going to stay out, and both Williams are in. What is that about? What is that? What are they doing? What is Bottas doing? doing? He comes in behind Joe, so they're going to double stack. So Bottas has done so much good work. It's going to be undone with that double stack. So we continue on, and we're going to, well, we've got some okay pace, so I think, you know, we'll just extend this stint one more lap. We probably will maybe fall behind Norris, I'm not going to lie, because of the tyre wear. Look at the bottom right, our tyre is literally red, so I think we're very much in puncher region, but what this will allow us is to make sure that we have enough tyre to finish this race on the medium strongly. So even though we might be behind some cars that we have to overtake, we're going to be on the quicker compound. I hate the hard tyre around Monza. It's so difficult to rubber in and get some grip going. So as we exit the pit lane, where is Norris? Where is Joe? There they are. Oh, look at that. Amazing views. We see those two side by side into turn one, and Joe defends against Norris and maintains P1. Norris P2. We're down to P3, but we're on the quicker tyre, and so very, very rapidly we're going to be catching up to the McLaren. Meanwhile, just a sit rep on Russell. He's in P5 then. Giovinazzi P4. Things are settling down now, and I think that may be the pecking order, and the fight that we see for the rest of the race is Russell trying to catch up to Giovinazzi to get up into P4. So just showing Russell's there. So we need to try our hardest to try and fight for this win to get the most points we can, because Russell's still getting a good load in P5 and maybe more in P4. Good overtake on Norris. Bit deep into turn one on purpose in a way, just to make sure he doesn't get a chance to switch us and get better acceleration. And now we can go chasing after Guan Yu Zhou all over again. Meanwhile, good news for us, Russell is not actually catching Giovinazzi too much, and the Red Bulls are showing really good race pace, as they have done in the last couple, really, as they've resurged a bit. And Schumacher even looking to overtake Russell, and up into P5 he goes. So that might be a battle we see, because Russell's going to have to try and fire as hard as he can. Meanwhile, behind him, Hamilton is up in P7 ahead of Bottas there. So that's how badly Bottas' double stack went, and how low Verstappen's fallen. He's down in P17, Verstappen is, compared to Hamilton. So I talked about you're going to see the difference of how good Verstappen is. It's the commentator's curse. What's going on? I think Verstappen's got floor damage for sure, and is just limping around. Maybe it's now we see on lap 15, Leclerc. He wasn't even in the points anyway, but he's got an engine failure, and so that is 3 engine failures in 4 races for our team as a whole. This is not a good look for our team, and Porsche especially as well. In their entry into Formula 1, 3 big DNFs like this in 4 races, not great, and that's got me worried a little bit for our engine as well in this race, because we've seen it before. As now Verstappen has just spun it out the right-hander, and he's out the Grand Prix. The floor damage, I think, was too much for him. He was skating around on the rear end, it seemed like, and then just lost it on the curb in a similar fashion to how he lost it at Belgium. But this time, it's been terminal, and he's out of the Grand Prix. How the mighty have fallen. He was looking like an absolute monster in qualifying for Belgium, and now it's all gone wrong. But obviously you can't blame him. The floor damage, I think, has definitely affected him there, because he just didn't look like his normal AI self. But now it's time to get going once again after that safety car for Verstappen's incident, and we go green. We're right up behind Joe, so we're in a good position to get P1 straight away maybe. But as we pull out the slipstream, the Williams is so good in a straight line naturally that I can't actually overtake him fully. We have to dive bomb him, and he's going to squeeze us a little bit. Maybe, oh, massive vault across the curve for Joe, and he vaulted so much that we had to take avoiding action, and we're down to P4 now. Giovinazzi and Norris both ahead of us, but Giovinazzi's slow. What's happened to Norris? Oh, Norris has got an issue as we go through on the left-hand side. I thought Giovinazzi was slowing up, but no, he was being held up by the McLaren. Norris has issues. That's not going to be great for McLaren. It's good news for us, because it matches Leclerc's DNF if Norris has to pit now early, well, for a second time. No, not early, for a second time full stop for damage. I think he maybe got damage on Joe because he tried to overtake him for P1 and made contact with the Williams. So maybe now he's going to suffer for that, and that's going to play into the hands of Russell, though. That's actually not good news for us individually, because now Russell has a good chance to get up into P3 and get more points points. So overall, maybe not great for us individually. Good for the team in terms of Norris is not going to score points today. So as long as we can beat Russell, we will outscore McLaren. But it's more points for Russell potentially. But Giovinazzi has just made a great overtake to get back into P3. So he may be helping us. The Italian in his home race is in a podium position now. And I'm hoping because of that reason, the home fans, can he try and draw energy and defend Russell for the rest of the Grand Prix? 7 laps to go. Russell, though, looking supreme, but Giovinazzi fights back at him and maintains P3 on the outside of turn 2. And that fight, I think, is going to go on all the way to the end, because you can just tell Russell is on it now, and he can sense a good podium. Meanwhile, Tsunoda battling Schumacher, and we are chasing after Guan Yu Zhou. It was no one's fault, really. Zhou just went over the curb, and we took avoiding action, so I'm not kind of annoyed at the situation, but we just have to get our head down and try our best. But now, as we go on through the race, the tyre wear is going to start kicking in for us in the mediums versus the hard compound of Zhou. He'll be in a much better position as the laps go on, so we need to get this move done earlier, sooner rather than later. And at the same time, look at the bottom right, our engine is worn out a little bit, so that's concerning as well. We know our teammate had a failure. We've had 2 failures before in Austria and Britain. I really hope this doesn't end in a failure. We've got 5 laps to go, though, and no indication quite yet from our engineer, so that's good news for us as we enter lap 23. DRS open, ERS deployed all the way across the line. Stop deploying it now to save it for the end of the lap, because although we overtake Zhou now, I'm going to need the extra ERS. This ERS I saved by not deploying all the way down the main straight. We're going to need that for the end of the lap, because you know he's going to come back at us. And that's exactly what will happen through Parabolica. He's almost, pushing us through, kind of sniffing around on the rear end. In the mirrors, we look behind. We're deploying ERS all the way across the line. Continue to deploy it, but look at the power of DRS. It's so difficult to do anything, really. You just have to try and do this tango, this kind of Formula 1 chess on the fly, as he defends very well, I must say, Joe. I thought I could nip down the inside there, but he placed his car so well. But it's like Formula 1 chess at Monza. You've got to be in the right position at the right time on the last lap of the Grand Prix when you're fighting this closely for P1. So although we're swapping positions now, oh my God! So close to the wall on the right. Zhou narrowly giving us enough room. We squeeze him out back up into P1, and I'm hoping this time we can maybe push away a little bit and try and lose him. He looks a bit slow now off that corner. I don't know. Meanwhile, we've got Giovinazzi. He's down in P4. Russell's overtaken him. That's horrendous news for us. Russell's in P3. Giovinazzi's been done, but there's still 2 laps to go. Surely, come on. The Italian's got to go for the move in his home race to get on the podium. Would be absolutely amazing for him. Round the outside, Parabolica. This is going to be a sensational move. Giovinazzi doing wonders. It's been amazing to see how much of a difference it makes being in the Red Bull for him versus the Alfa Romeo. The first time in the career mode he's been in a top car, and he's really taken to it so well. He may be, well, he was not leading Schumacher in the standings up until maybe now with this podium, with Schumacher fighting Bottas for P5. They're swapping positions left and right, but we're not watching that right now because we're watching this fight. Second last lap of the Grand Prix. Guan Yu Zhou right up our gearbox, giving us pressure, but it's game on for the last lap of the Grand Prix. But now there's smoke coming out of the back of our car. No, don't tell me it's a yellow engine. It's not red. It's not a failure, but our engineer tells us the control electronics are very worn and are going to wear out the rest of the engine. So that's why we've got the red icon on the bottom, but the control electronics are very worn out. We lost a lot of grip into Ascari due to the tyre wear, and also I think just the surprise of the engine just feeling a little bit different into the entry. So we lost the lead to Guan Yu Zhou into Ascari. As much as we pushed on, we actually set a purple first sector with the DRS, and I used every last ounce of this engine to push hard in Sector 1. Sector 2, though, has not been as quick. You can see the rear end is wagging away as the tyre wear wear kicks in, and also the engine now is struggling and is not firing at full pelt. And so Guan Yu Zhou on the second last of the Grand Prix, he's going to get gifted the win here. He's going to take it away from us, and he's going to win the Italian Grand Prix. It'll be Zhou's second win of the season, though. GG's to him, but annoying for us. It could have been P1, but it's still P2. It's still points ahead of Russell. Giovinazzi on the podium in his home race. Fantastic for him and us to take points away from Russell. But what a dramatic ending.
They made great use of the clear air today then and didn't allow anyone to exploit the slipstream behind them. What a great win here at Monza. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, I honestly feel it was down to the driver and car today. I mean, we can talk driver skill all day, but if you don't have a solid team to back that, you're never going to get anywhere. When you hit that sweet spot of having both an excellent driver and an incredible car, that's when you see results like those we witnessed today.
It looks like it's time once again to hand out the silverware as the successful drivers make their way to the podium. It was a gritty performance today by Williams, and they've got the race win to prove it.
Well, it could have been 2 wins in a row like Russell for us then today, but it just wasn't meant to be. I'd rather, though, finish in second than DNF at all. We got very lucky that wasn't a full mechanical failure. The F1 gods looking down upon us, just a control electronics issue that really started to wear the engine out. And we had that before, remember? I think the Singapore Grand Prix last season, where in a race where my teammate had an engine failure, it seemed to be something connected for the whole team because we had a similar issue at the end, and so we lose down to second place, but we still gain on Russell. We still gain good points. We're closing, we're chipping away, but now you've got other people like Guan Yu Zhou maybe also throwing their hat into the ring of maybe slowly trying to chip away as well. So you know, at the moment it may look like a 2-horse race, myself v Russell, but I think there's still so much of the season to go. You can't guarantee that. In the constructors, we do gain a little bit on McLaren today, but there's still a lot of work to be done. But Williams have resurged again this season. They're back to kind of where they were at the end of last season, it seems, but this time in the hands of Guan Yu Zhou. Red Bull, though, really good resurgence for them. They are actually ahead of AlphaTauri in the standings still, doing well. And Ferrari, I mean, they've clearly got pace to be on pole, be on front rows, but I don't know what they're doing in the races. They are really underperforming and not achieving their full potential in these races. They've got one of their drivers now retiring out of the season. Is there ever going to be a season on this game where Ferrari are actually there fighting for a championship with us? A lot of questions still to be answered and still a long way to go in this season. Guys, if you did enjoy this episode, though, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.